The meeting will go live now, and I'll start recording now.
Hi everyone, so welcome to the Climate Change CDC on the 20th of July. So the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
Apologies from Councillors Oliver James, Erica Kirshner, Andrea Lewis, and also from Paul Mellor.
Okay. Any other apologies that we know of? No. Okay. So the second item on the agenda then is disclosures of personal and or prejudicial interests.
Yes, if I can just make a disclosure of personal interest in item 4 as an employee of Penford Air Trust on nature recovery, basically. Thanks.
Okay, any other disclosures? No? Okay. Going to item 3 then, that's the minutes of the meeting on the 15th of July. So has everybody had a chance to read them? Happy to approve? Can I have anybody first? So Councillor Rice, can I have a seconder? Perfect. Okay.
Okay.
And that takes us then to item 4. So this is Climate Change CDC Work Programme 22-23. So as we discussed last month, the purpose of this committee, so this CDC, is to develop policies or give policy direction then, if you will, for consideration and adoption by Cabinet and or Council. So at the last meeting, we had a lot of ideas brought forward by members. So we talked about iconic electric or hydrogen vehicles, improving Council's fleet, recycling, sustainable recycling as well, electric vehicle charging, that network access, nature recovery, brownfield options. So lots of things that we talked about in the last meeting. So in addition to this, then I said in the last meeting that we also need to consider our corporate priorities. And these were then adopted on the 7th of July. So this included then delivering on the nature recovery and climate change, and it also included our new wellbeing objectives. So with all of that then taken into consideration, you can see on the work plan that's been included in your agenda packs so we're mapping out the direction of the CDC basically up to April 2023 based on our discussions basically last month and our corporate priorities. What we now need to discuss is, or agree basically, is this work programme, including a manageable number of items. For example, we need to have some clearly defined outputs, specific policy delivery, for example, and just thinking about ways how we can draft policy around these key work plan items, if you will. So if we start with the first item, and I'm just going to bring Jeff in to talk about the work plan, just give us a little bit more just information on each of the areas and what they feed into. Okay, so over to you, Jeff.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I will, hopefully you've had a chance to look at the report and you can see what's being proposed. I mean, this is an indicative work plan that we have sort of set out, which we think will be helpful to enable further discussion today and in future meetings. This isn't the final version. As you can probably see, there are broad headings, but there's a lot of the detail that sits underneath each individual heading, which will involve quite a bit of work to actually bring forward to CDC for further discussion. So part of the rationale behind this is to enable officers to have time to prepare reports, get them signed off, get them brought to committee for you to have further discussion. So as you said, Chair, this is all about the ability for CDC to develop policy and policy consideration. It's for you to choose any items of inclusion within the work programme. So there isn't, whilst we've proposed a work programme as set out in the report, this isn't a definitive and a final version by any means. And as you also said, as in the report, it needs to be a manageable number of items, and there's clearly some big issues here that will require a fair amount of discussion, possibly at more than one meeting. Obviously, we're also quite conscious about certain elements which may overlap with scrutiny, and I think even now, looking at the report, we're thinking some of these items may be more scrutiny based, perhaps, as opposed to policy development. But as I said, if this is an evolving organic document, I think that's probably fine for us in terms of future discussion going forward. I'll describe them in broad detail. I'm by no means an expert on any or all of these items, but hopefully it will give you a fair feel for what sort of broad headings we're talking about. We've identified nature recovery to come forward to the next meeting, and we're happy to continue on that basis, which it talks about the document to be produced by Swansea Nature Programme, covers in particular sort of Section 6 biodiversity action plans and our countrywide green infrastructure strategy, with the intended outcome to have an adopted nature recovery plan and strategy for the authority. So I think we're comfortable with that to come forward to the next meeting, and it would help if we continue with that as the programme. We then identified the net zero delivery plan, which is intended to go forward to Cabinet around about November time. So it could either be a consideration prior to that November Cabinet date or after, in terms of any future policy development. So I'd welcome your discussion in terms of whether that's appropriate before or after that date. Waste strategy, there is an existing waste strategy. We're looking at consideration of post-2025 targets, key areas for policy development, and in particular, as you can see, collection methods of and maximisation of recycling and wider efficiency. That was penciled in for sort of November. Again, that could potentially change. Welcome your views on that. Sustainable transportation, that will cover broad issues in terms of green fleet, EV charging, grey fleet, staff transport, commuting, etc. So an awful lot in that as a potential strategy or discussion document. Again, it may be a broad report comes to CTC, and then further discussions in terms of spin-off in terms of further policy, maybe what you may want to consider. Energy generation, looking for perhaps proposing something early in the new year, looking at the council's policy approach to renewables, PVs, wind, etc. Sustainable food policy, potentially linking to community land for growing. That's another item that I think needs some further policy development. Again, that's an early in the new year proposal, along with sustainable products. Now, sustainable products and procurement is a 2050 target as opposed to 2030 target. So as you can see, we're trying to concentrate on 2030 direct emissions for the authority for the early part of your consideration as an action plan. We've also set out again some more 2050 target related areas, including whether housing stock decarbonisation and new build. Quite a bit of work already happening on that in terms of identification, but again, more for 2050, whether discussions around the lagoon will need to come to this this body. Construction, new build and maintenance, again, very much a procurement issue. Air and soil quality, and we should also add water in that as a potential discussion document. Community land for growing, again, links into sustainable food policy, and I think there is, as I said earlier on, a policy gap, so there may be one for consideration at this group. And again, a more wider 2050 net zero countrywide behavioural change piece of work. But again, I think that's probably something for a little bit later. That was a bit of a whistle-stop tour guide, but as you could see, big headings, big meaty subjects, and welcome discussions and your views as to how you would either like to reorder or reconsider that as a proposed action plan. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Jeff. Just checking. Has anybody got their hands up?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that information. I think that whistle stop tour it was. I think maybe we're going to go back to that first nature recovery action plan. So just maybe a little bit more information in terms of what our aim would be at that stage. So for us, it would be discussion about the plan and the role that will play. It is an action plan at that point. So during this meeting in September, the idea is that we get an update on the nature recovery plan, consider any areas that do need policy development following that as an outcome of it. And then so this will help to inform us of any future actions and policy areas, for example. So that's the idea behind bringing that one to the meeting or to the next meeting. I'm happy to take questions as we go through, maybe, rather than do this as a whole document and then go back. So does anybody have any questions on that one? And is anybody happy? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's, if we look at the first one there, nature recovery and the things in the round, I think this is an excellent action plan for a work programme and things that we can do over the next year ahead. I think it's prioritising the right things in my mind by putting nature recovery and net zero. Looking at nature recovery, it's quite a wide topic. It could potentially be something that at least might take 2 sessions, depending on what our involvement is going to be in the action plan and how we review that. And I think what's really important going on from that as well is that in policy development is looking at what the resourcing opportunities are. How can we ensure that that action plan can be implemented? And I think certainly with the cabinet meeting tomorrow, looking at the underspend that they had of 41 million last year, and also the plans that they have for 24.7 million going forward for the recovery budget, there's a real opportunity to look at how we can resource some of these things and think about what we could do. I know that there's probably other funds that would be available which could be matched or brought into nature recovery, net zero, because in many respects, especially the second one, these are invest to save. If we do the things now, invest now, we're going to be heading off some of the costs in the future. But definitely supportive of the plan. I've got comments on the other areas if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so thank you for that. I'm just checking if there's no hands up. No. Okay. So moving on then to 2030 net zero. So I agree with the points that you make there. So these 2 first subjects are really important and very meaty subjects they are. The aim of the CDC at that point then would be to basically look at the proposal or the report. So it will have the support of the CDC, or so look at the report maybe in terms of before it goes to cabinet, maybe providing options for council to consider how we then can achieve our net zero target for 2030. I think then at that point we'll really need to consider the work plan going forward, because we would have discussed 2 really large areas at that point, and then it will be dependent on the meeting following that. But is everybody happy then to consider 2030 net zero delivery at that point in that October session? And does anybody have any comments? No? Okay. Okay. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this is going to be considered a live document. Okay, so there is possibly it will possibly change. We may have to move something forward or push something back, for example, as we go through. The next thing on the agenda then will be the waste strategy plan that we have. And I think the aim for us then as a CDC will be to receive an update from officers in relation to the strategy and where we are there at that point, consider any potential post or future targets and options, and how we can achieve them at that point, as they are outlined in the existing waste strategy itself. So again, that will be coming to us in the November meeting. Does anybody have any comments that they want to? Okay.
Just 2 just 2 very quick ones there. In terms of waste strategy, as it's a few months away, and we've got a chance to think about things, I think it would be worth having a look at what we can do for, as a part of the waste strategy, waste reduction, especially in terms of food, and look at things like the Milan project, where we had set up food hubs, and it can help address some of the cost of living issues at the same time, whilst really reducing the amount of food waste going to landfill. We pay about £25 a tonne for food waste, I think, at the moment, or something like that, which is great value at the moment. But again, if we can reduce that down. And the second thing I think just to look in for, is there another commercial opportunity from waste that we haven't looked at? And I think, you know, looking at things like Entocycle, the idea of being able to produce fertilizers or other things off food waste, which is by using like creatures like soldier flies, things like that. There's a commercial opportunity for the council there.
Thank you for that. I'm happy to submit those questions in advance of those meetings if you'd like. Okay. Right. Moving forward then, we've got the sustainable transport strategy. So at this point then, it would be our aim to consider the final draft strategy at that point, possible policies that would sit within or underneath the strategy itself, and including any available resources to us or at that point as well, or at that time. Anybody want to make any comments on this part? No? It's the same. No? Okay. Yeah. Did you want to come in?
Yeah, again, it's like a prior warning of things that I think might be worth looking at in the future. Manchester just introduced or about to introduce this autumn bus fare cap, and they're also looking at being able to reduce the cost of public transport. And there's obviously been some great examples across Europe about cost reduction. It'd be interesting to see how they've used legislation in Manchester and how they've introduced it seems by agreement with private business to introduce a bus fare cap, which I think would really help with sustainable transport.
Great, thanks again. And then that takes us then into January 2023 and energy generation policy then. And again, I just think that for us as a CDC, just looking at, some of the information coming from here. So this will be our renewable strategic policy at this point that would need to be developed. The first step would be to explore what other public bodies are doing by way of similar policies, for example, learning from others, just applying maybe a comparative approach there, and again just discussing what our role could be when it comes to energy generation at that point. Does anybody have any questions on this aspect of the plan? Councillor Rice?
Sorry again. Obviously, you can tell this is one of my areas of interest. But in terms of energy generation, we've got obviously a big project on the horizon with Tir John, and I think we're looking at solar generation there and other opportunities. I think it would be great, with that as being such an opportunity, to look at the batteries that go alongside for holding the energy. And there's some great innovations in Finland at the moment called sand batteries, which are very eco-friendly in themselves in development. So it could be an opportunity there. I think they're called Polaris or something like that, the sand batteries, but it's being used by local authorities, I think, up in Finland.
Thank you again. Okay, and then this will take us into February then and our sustainable food policy. So there's no strategy yet as to how Swansea will move forward with this. This is a 2050 target that we need to consider in terms of our aims at this point. I think that it will be dependent on the work that we've done previously up to that point. So we might want to maybe come back to our position on sustainable food policy, and I think I'm going to say and make the same point then when it comes to sustainable products as a 2050 target, so we'll keep it on the work plan is what I'll suggest, but as I've said, it is a working document, as we'll see how we fare. And then that final month then before the end of the year will be we've popped in just a reflection there. So the aim would be to review our progress up to that date, what we've done, and consider lessons learned and the new work plan going forward for 2023-24. Sorry, Sarah, did you want to?
Yeah, sorry. Have I got this? Is this working now? Oh, I put it on. Yes, I was just wondering, with sustainable food policy, is this just more allotments, or is this supporting local farmers, or a bit of everything, just to know what we're aiming at? Because I would have said at the moment, with the whole thing with farming seeming to go further and further away with the Australian meat and everything coming into the country, it would be good to concentrate on farming as well as more areas for people to grow their own stuff closer to home.
I can see Councillor Lewis has got a hand up on screen. I'll bring you in, Councillor, but I think that this would be pulling everything together under this strategy. So it would be education, procurement, economic development, and yeah. So, but Councillor Lewis, did you want to come in?
Yes, and just in support, Chair, of your comments on the policy, absolutely, this is going to try to encompass everything, including school catering, for example, and catering at our council-owned facilities, procurement in terms of supporting our local procurement strategy that's already in place, but accounting for the fact that it does have to be sustainable. So yes, look forward to the item coming to the committee, but as you said, Chair, a very broad strategy trying to cover everything that the council touches upon in terms of food, including community growing as well, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Okay, so that generally takes us to the end of discussion on the work plan. If anybody has anything else that they want to bring in to discuss. Does anybody have any comments they want to think? Nothing at all? Okay, so I will, yeah, Sarah?
Just to say, one meeting for each of these things. I mean, biodiversity. Really? Will we have more time? We haven't got more time. I take it it's just one meeting.
No, not necessarily. So
Okay.
it would be a case of we've included these in as our priorities following the corporate plan, following the ideas that we had in our last meeting, following what the council is already doing. Some of these things are already in place. So, for example, a lot of work has already been done and is being done in waste strategy. That policy, I believe, is ready to go. So, Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, sorry, but there is already a current waste strategy in place, 21 to 25, I think it is. So, you know, for us, it'll be a case of maybe that policy coming to us. So it might not be that we need to take an entire meeting there, but we could push.
Yeah.
You know, I do believe that maybe net zero delivery will take us a lot more than that one meeting. So
Yes.
this is why we're calling it this live document. So we've got a lot of meaty topics in here. Absolutely, all of them are very important. We've put the nature recovery and net zero first, and then you'll see how this develops as we go forward then.
Can I ask one question?
Of course you can.
Question with the waste strategy. Oh. Thought it was on. Is that on? Yeah. Waste strategy. I thought instantly, my mind went there. Sewerage as well, because I know there's some really interesting. I think it's Birmingham where the waste actually turns into fertilizer and ends up back in local farms. Now that's really the complete cycle. Love to see that included. I know it would be an expensive thing for us to do, but unless it's on the table and we discuss it.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. So does anybody have anything they'd like to add in addition now? So any input from any officers at all? Councillor Rice?
Just one last point. I think it's to go back over a point I made earlier, but with a bit more time to it, is that I think resourcing what we do is going to be really important, because it's going to be a great work plan and there's a great ideas here, but I think we need to make sure that it's not in isolation and that it's resourced fully by the cabinet and the wider council, and they sign up to the requirements that will be there. So I mean, there's money to invest in terms of invest save, and this is the time to do it really. And I know the cabinet and people are considering how they'll spend money in the years ahead and what money. And I think, you know, put some money aside that we can resource these properly, and then I think we'll really achieve and deliver.
Okay. Jeff, did you put your hand up there, Jeff?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the input from other members of the committee. This has been really interesting. I think one thing is very clear, and we all recognise, is the scale of the task is massive, and we're not blind to the fact that this work plan is incredibly challenging. And I think it will probably be the first meeting will indicate how much we can actually achieve collectively based on just that one nature recovery document. So we'll just have to learn and evolve with the work plan and see where we go. When you've got situations like sewage and sort of generation of electricity, of course, that wouldn't be in our control. That would be something no doubt the Welsh Water would have to be involved with, and we'd have to have further discussions with them, and it would link more widely to 2050 targets. So we are desperately trying to concentrate on 2030 for what we can do as an organisation. That delivery plan is obviously very important for us, because that will put it into context of what we can do, and we'll pick up Councillor Rice's issues about resourcing and what resources are going to be needed. It's a big topic, you know, and it's we're not going to do it justice necessarily just through sort of one item a month, but we'll do our damnedest to sort of present as much as we can and to get your views, and at least to raise awareness about some of the issues and understand whether there are some policy and strategy gaps. I think that's what we welcome some feedback on during the next 12 months.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Okay. So believe, oh, sorry, Angela, did you want to come in?
Hi, sorry, just talking about the sustainable food strategy, just to add to that, have we considered using green spaces in maybe schools or in nursing homes even to encourage that, you know, maybe food is grown, because I think it might add a sensory element to that.
Yeah, I'm happy to come in. I do believe that this is already being done to a certain extent when it comes to an example of pilot schemes that are happening around, I think, I'm not aware of the actual name of the school, I'm sorry, maybe an officer can help me with this, but there is a comprehensive school that is doing the Food to Fork project, for example, around sustainable food and local food. So I'm not sure if...
Okay, thank you.
Rachel, you're aware of the specifics? But no, it's a really great idea, actually, Angela. I do think it's something that maybe we could pursue. Have a little look at this pilot project, for example, and see, you know, the benefits and how it's worked and what needs to be developed. Okay.
Sorry, Chair, I'm not aware of this specific school, but I can find out for you. I'll speak to procurement.
Thank you. Okay, so I do believe now, if we are all generally in agreement with the work plan as it stands, but with that caveat that we're happy to provisionally approve it, then maybe we'll say in its current format, with the understanding that it is a live working document. Maybe we could ask if we could have a copy of the work plan just attached to our minutes or our agenda pack every month, and then it's just something that maybe we could add to the agenda, maybe just as we're going through, just so that we are mindful maybe of what's to come, and any questions that we have in advance of any meetings over the next few months, we can try and preempt those. Okay, so do I need to formally approve? So it's, I don't need a first or a second. Somebody needs to approve. Yes. So somebody propose a second. Propose. Yes. I don't think I can.
One of them.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Happy? Yes. And then I need a seconder. So you're happy to second? So then if we're all, yeah, we're all happy then. Yes, we raise our hands. Okay, brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Okay, so moving on then to that final item then, this, so this is the date and time of the meetings that are due to take place. So obviously we did mention this last month, but there was just, well, it might have taken us just quite a while to work out when we were available, who was available, and what was available in the diary. So I did ask members in advance of the meeting what would be their preferred option. And it does seem to be that the third Monday of the month at 5:30 p.m. Sorry. Yeah, that seems to be the preferred option. So again, if everybody's happy with that, I mean, I would need a proposer and a seconder again, would I? Yeah. So if somebody would be happy to propose, we switch to the third Monday at 5:30. Thank you very much. And then, are you happy to second? Okay. Are we all happy with the third Monday, 5:30? Third Monday of the month, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, happy.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I haven't had any other business or any other agenda items. Does anybody have any questions at all moving forward? No? And then I think I can declare the meeting closed then. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.